Hello everybody. How you doing? So if you guys are new here, I'm primarily, at least for this channel, doing dual focus content. And I haven't really made any videos like this where I'm just talking to the mic and kind of making my own videos, usually just posting VODs of the games. But since there's a decent amount of new people, I wanted to make a duos tier list, like a pretty quick one. Usually my lists and stuff are pretty long, so I wanted to, it's still probably gonna be pretty long, but I wanted to go a little bit quicker. I don't have my teammate here with me because he's sleeping, and I didn't really want to. This was like a spur of the moment, like, oh, this would be good for the new viewers. Dual, I would say like this season in particular, hero tier lists or hero tiers are kind of important just because the reroll feature is pretty impactful. If you have the Battlegrounds pass, you get an extra shot at picking a new hero, and those heroes do matter. So people have better heroes in general. So not messing up, making sure you are prioritizing good minions can really help your gameplay in a bit. And just like team combos and hero combos are pretty important. So that is something to keep in mind. I was also thinking about making like a generic duos guide, but we're still trying to hit rank 1 this season, so I think I don't want to like share all the secrets right now. No, sorry guys, but I still need to make the games easier for myself. Here at tier list, you still have to play well even if you know the good heroes, so I figured that one's fine to do. So let's get started. So the plan is we're just going to go through at least the first like 3 tiers. Fourth and fifth tier are less relevant in my opinion, but we'll go through there. And I'm going to be typing up the heroes at the top here, so you can, at least if you're kind of new, you'll see what the hero does. You can see the name of the hero and the ability to gold pass a non-golden minion. Then you can kind of see the pick rate and win rate. I would say pick rate is kind of relevant. It just shows like popularity, and popularity is more of a better metric than power level compared to actually the placements, in my opinion. So, first one in S tier, we have Madame Goya. I would say like they're kind of ordered, but they're not. Just if they're in their tier, they're like about the same. I wouldn't say they're necessarily ordered. Like if you had to pick between Goya and Marin, you could, like, I wouldn't judge you either one. They're pretty fine. So first one we have Goya. So Goya is two to pass. The power of this is 2 cost hero powers early game are very, very strong because there's a lot of 1 cost spells that you can take advantage of. And being able to do something for 2 cost and then buy the spell just makes you really strong. And then passing is a really powerful mechanic in general, just in duos, because there are a lot of on reveals you can replay. There's a lot of choose ones you can replay, and a lot of these cards scale by themselves. So one of the ones is like Foodie, the Cold War one. If you replay that, it's really strong. Another Construct, if you replay that one, that's very strong. Any of the generic battle cries with a brand, you replay that's very strong. So you just have a lot of like combos, and then you can feed your opponent very easily because you want to generally be feeding someone in duos somewhat. Like at end game, you want to both have comps, but especially in the early game, one strong person can definitely solo 2 boards if they're like being fed. So Goria lets that happen really easily, and then you get to play um some of the past synergy cards, the 2/2 that scales 1/2. That particular minion is very, very good with Goya. So you just have a lot of these synergies. Goya is just really, really strong, one of the best heroes in duo. So if you have Goya, it's kind of a no-brainer in my opinion to pick it up. 8 armor is kind of weak, but you make up for it in power. And that's the best way to make up for it, like just kill them. So Goya, definitely S tier in my book, so something really strong. Next up, we have Marin. So Marin's a little bit like scary to play if you're not used to it. So if you haven't played in the trinket meta, on turn 5 you get to choose a list of trinkets. So it does take a little bit to get the payoff, and you also have very low armor. So if you are playing 2 low armor heroes, Marin can be really scary. But the trinkets are really strong if you know which ones to pick. There are some really good ones to choose. I guess I like realistically I should go and like say pick this one, pick this trinket, pick this trinket. And I theoretically could do that, but it makes the video so much longer is my issue for one particular hero that's like not the end of the world. Essentially, the trinkets you want to be picking up give you economy of some kind. I would say those are like the best trinkets to get, or even like orchestra where you get like consistent scaling. But generally, the economy trinkets are really powerful because you can use that money to make combos or get triples very easily or things like that. There's some really good ones in there. So Marn's really strong. You have to be aware, like you can't pick this and then pick a bad trinket. You'll kill yourself. But it it there's a lot of good trinkets in that pool that you can get a huge advantage from playing Mar, and that's the advantage there. Next up, we have Galacrondo. So you choose a minion or tower, and you can choose a higher tier minion. So you essentially just what you do is you stack one minion in the early game and turn it into a tier 6, or whether it doesn't have to be tier 6, but just a really good minion. Then you can buy that and just start scaling. Most people go to tier 6, but sometimes there's some really powerful tier 4 or tier 5s that can be appeasing. This is, every hero is so specific. You need like a hero guide for all of them. But some of the big hits are any of the Kobor, right? The ones that scale. So Poki, really good. Sometimes you can do something with the elemental tier 6 that scales when you play an extra elemental, kind of like Nomi but better. That one's pretty strong. Nagas can be pretty good. You can get an early one. So Pirates also same thing. So there are some really good tier 6s. You have to be aware of which ones are good, and even after that, you just start making high tier minions. So once you start leveling, you're like tier 4, you can make 5 drops every turn without having to spend the cost of leveling if you're feeling pressured. Or once you get to tier 5, you make a 6 every turn without having to level. So it's just a really strong hero. Good armor. It's also very important. It has the highest base armor out of all of these. So not as risky as you would think compared to some of the other strong heroes that have lower armor bases. So just a really strong hero. Being able to get an early tier 6 or early tier 5 is really, really powerful, and then you can use that advantage to win the game. And this is a very good hero to combo with some other heroes. So some of the heroes have great combos. I'd say most of these have great combos. Just you're not really sad whoever your duo partner's hero is with these, but with like Reno, with like Zarek, with like Brand, there's just some really powerful combos that can do some work. So definitely a strong hero. Next up, we have the sleeper of the set. This one was recommended by another duo kind of group, Seville and Sliders. They won the tournament and they were like, "Oh, Millhouse is insane." And we had never played Millhouse honestly before they recommended it, and we were like, "Oh, okay, we'll just trust them. We'll blindly pick it." And it's been fantastic for us. So definitely have to put this in the high tiers. The reason why this ends up being really good is that duos doesn't really force you to roll that much in the early game, just because you can always bypass with Millhouse, since buying costs 2, pass costs 1. Buying and passing costs you 3, so it's like buying a minion normally. So in terms of tempo wise, you're not really losing that much tempo to just bypass to your teammate. And you're strong early. You don't have to pass, and then there's a lot of ways to mitigate the downside. First of all, you can change the hero power if you must, but sometimes you just want to just pay for 2. Pirates do really well with this. Elementals do really well with Millhouse Hero Power buying out the shop, and just Nagas can do well as well. So, and then also just like feeding your teammate. So you're kind of like a mini Goya in essence, in that Goya, yeah, you're paying 2 for the hero power and passing, but you can like essentially feed your whole shop to your teammate, and it doesn't really cost you that much. It's like they're buying the minion, but you're just feeding them and they can get very strong. And then next turn you can fill your board, and it doesn't really cost you too much, and you're leveling. If the shop's bad, you just level. It's not as painful to be playing Millhouse in duos compared to in solos. So it just ended up being a really powerful hero. A lot of consistencies. You do have to understand how the hero is played. So I definitely have some Millhouse games in the rotation. You can also just check hsreplay.net and just look in the duos tab and see the heroes. and usually I have a video of those particular heroes. So I think that's like, if you really like don't know how to play a particular hero, you can just check that section and then see. So for example, if I click on Millhouse here, and scroll down a little bit. Actually, I have to view hero, right? So we're just scrolling down, right? You'll see here I have a couple games, you know, to check out. So that's just a feature here. If you really need help on a particular hero, you can do that. So that's kind of nice. Anyways, moving on, we have Nameless One. So Nameless One is kind of generic in that it's not a real hero. It just copies your teammate's hero power. So it's hard to say, oh, this is a great hero, because sometimes this hero is awful. But when you have good synergies, this hero is fantastic. And that's when you play this. You're not going to be playing this when your teammate has a bad hero. You're only going to be playing this hero when you have any of these S tier heroes. You can just double up and you're particularly fine. Millhouse might be the weirder one, but it's usually probably pretty fine. And any of these other, even A tier heroes as well, just getting 2 copies of it is really, really powerful. So, like, the worst or one of the weirder or sadder moments is when you have a bad hero and they have a nameless and you just can't help them, right? So, it's generally just strong to get 2 copies of a good hero, especially if you're comfortable with the heroes, and it just feels really good. So, and there's also like some heroes give you like particular minions, and then if you both have the same hero, you're both getting the same minions, making it easier to triple, things like that. There's some real weird stuff with having the same hero of this in the same team, so it can be really powerful. But it had to be put in like, this is a hero that can be raised up a tier in particular. Next up, we have the A tiers. So A tiers are also still fantastic. I'm not really judging them too much. There's like the S tier is a little bit above, but it's not too bad. But it is mentionable. First off, we have Patchwork. So Patchwork normally would be in S tier, but I would say it's fallen off a little bit just because they balance the armors a little bit better this patch compared to like last patch. Last patch, the armors were like not very nice. A lot of people just had low armors, and having 30 armor was better than most hero powers, in my opinion. So nowadays, that's not really the case, but it's still a fantastic hero if you play it correctly. Now, something I see a lot of people doing wrong with Patchwork is just that they don't play aggressive, or they don't play risky, in that they're not leveling essentially with Patchwork, and they're kind of playing like a normal curve and not respecting that they have like 2 free turns to do something crazy, and then you're still going to be alive. Where if you were trying to do this with Snake Eyes, you'd be dead. But because you have 30 extra armor, you're just like, okay, I'll just level to 5, get 2 6s, and then we'll recover with that extra turn we get. Whereas sometimes you can't do that. And some people that play patches just stay on 3, stay on 4, and they're just like, you're gonna die. Like, you don't have a hero power. There's no recovery with your hero. So that's just something to keep in mind when you're playing Patrick. You do have to keep in mind that your ability is you can level, you can use the health for as a resource instead of like playing safe and dying. So that is just a little tidbit there. Next up, we have Rat King. Now, Rat King doesn't look all that special, I'm going to be honest. When you look at it, low armor base, 8 armor is kind of nothing. And then you just have a 2 cause discover a minion of a specific type and it swaps. But the power, there is a real power in 2 cost hero powers that don't fall off. So Rat King's doesn't fall off in the cases you can always use it because it tells you what minion type you're getting. So when you're playing pirates, you get a pirate, you can use it. When you're playing elementals, you have an elemental, you can use it. Even when you're not playing those types and you have 2 gold left over, you can use it because it's like, okay, 2 gold, I get 1 gold back. So it's a 1 gold cost. Plus sometimes it's free. And sometimes just spending 2 gold to get free gold or to get net 0 loss is like very powerful. So just a pretty powerful early game hero that also has a relevant hero power in the late game or in the mid to late game. Late game, not as much, but mid to late game for sure. Next up, we have Tess. Tess is the king of like broken metas, and I'd say the meta's better for sure, but it still has like those lobbies where everyone knows what the strongest combos are, so everyone's forcing those one combos. Cold Wars were like the main culprit, but now Cold Wars are riskier to do. They're still broken, but they're riskier, so some people are doing other things when given the option. But Tess, like her real advantage is she can steal things that people are going to be playing because people usually want to play good things. And then she has 17 armor for some reason. So she's not really dying, right? Like I don't understand why she has so much armor, but she does. So it just makes her a very safe pick. And then sometimes they're playing Galakron, and then they have a tier 6 minion on tier 5, and then you take it. And then you have a tier 6 minion on tier 5, but you're way higher tier than them, or whatever. Or everyone's playing the same comp, and you just have the same comp, but way better because you're taking everyone's minions. So there's just like some broken stuff with tests. The one caveat, obviously, is that you're not guaranteed to get everything in their shop because you're hero powering 7 minions from 2 boards. So sometimes they have a brand, you want the brand, you hero power, you don't get the brand, and you're like, sucks. So that is the caveat. So she's a little bit weaker, a little less consistent, but you are paying 1 gold, so it's not the biggest investment to check. And then if you do hit, it's really powerful. So Tess really strong, very safe, lots of armor, really good hero. Next up we have Eudora. So this is my teammate Saf special. He loves playing this hero, and for good reason. Just they buffed her up to 4 digs instead of 5, so now she's a lot. It's very easy, or much easier, to get the 4 digs twice in a game. Some people go for the 3rd, but usually that's too risky. But getting the 2 digs, turn 1 to 4, then turn 5 to 8, you get 2 digs. You can usually get a tier 6 on the 2nd dig. Very strong tier 4 on the 1st. And it gives you direction, it gives you power, and you don't lose too much for it. You're usually pretty strong in the first turns. You're skipping the first turn, but then you're playing a regular curve, and then you get 2 huge power spikes on 4 and 8. Like it's just a pretty powerful, reliable hero of getting some power in the mid game. And then sometimes the golden minion you get is relevant, and then the game is easy because you got a relevant minion that's golden, plus you get an extra high tier minion, and it's so free. So sometimes you just win the game, and heroes that can win you games for free are just like beautiful, right? Like that's why Galakron is so high. You just sometimes just wins you a game tier of turn 5 for free. You don't have to do much. Same thing here. So just a really strong hero. Next up we have Zephyrus. So Zephyrus' main power is that in duos you really can just feed your triples to your teammate. So you don't have to level with Zeph. You could just stay down, get strong, find a triple, hero power it, pass it to your teammate, right? And then hey, they don't have to worry too much about tripling, and then you give them 2 or 3 high tier minions for a relatively low cost. Now the other thing you can do is get an extremely good board with Zephy. Instead of using his hero powers to make 6s, you can use his hero power to consolidate a well-planned game, a well-planned board. So let's say you're playing Nagas, right? And then you have the private chef or something. You get 2 private chefs, then bam, one turn you feel you use the chefs, you golden the chefs, then you just pop, make a ton of minions, and it's just really, really powerful. And now you have this golden chef to use for the rest of your game plan. And then you can do that with the Naga triple. You can do that with pirates. There's a lot of really good minions that want to be tripled and consolidated into one unit. So this is just a really powerful hero for safety reasons. 17 armor is fantastic, and then you have different ways of playing the hero that are both particularly strong. Next up, we have a hero that my teammate does not like how I play with him, but I have fantastic stats to back up my strategy. Farseer. So you get a copy of the last Tavern Cell you played, and each turn it costs 1 less. So this is inherently giving you a gold per turn, but the secondary ability is that you can reuse Tavern spells that you've already used before. Now this is fantastic if you play him like not running him down. Now there are ways to run him down, like you get strike all, and then you just strike all day, and you don't get a board and you die. Now I like doing that. I just don't die at the end because my teammate is playing tempo. But you can do that. You can use it with the tier 4 choose one or tier 3 choose one, where you get +2 or +4 if you wait a turn. You can get +4 every turn, and then you cost 3 gold and you get +4. It's really good tempo. You can use it with boundless potential, make get wisdom balls every turn. You can get tons of like really powerful spells. You can use it with eyes. There's like so many really good spells to copy per turn once you hit the mid to late game. So that's really strong. The scariest issue is you have the 10 armor and you're not really getting any advantage early. So if you're not using his hero power, you don't have a hero power at all. So you have to make sure you're getting some value. So your teammate has to kind of help you. Either play heavy tempos so that you can greed, or just give you a spell that's relevant. You know, any spell that costs 3 usually is worth, because the next time you use it, you're using it for 2. So you have to be a little bit like aware of like, hey, I need to do something with this hero, or it's not strong. I'm gonna take too much damage. I'm gonna feel pressured. I'm gonna play weak. So as long as you keep that in mind, this is a really good hero. There's a lot of like cool combos if you're using him correctly, or seeing these opportunities to double up on a particular spell can be really strong. Next up, we have Terran. So Terran is not a hero we play too much, but we definitely see a lot of good success with this hero. And I do want to showcase like there are really strong reasons to play this hero. Best case scenario is that you get to destroy something that has a death battle effect that's relevant. So beasts are really good at that. Undeads are really good at that. And even some combos with Rylak are also really good at that. So something I like to do when it's available is just play Rylak and the gold gaining Battlecry Dragon, the Sightseer. And then you just Rylak it, hero power Terran, you're getting 2 extra gold per turn. It's just really good, really strong. You make a lot of money. It doesn't cost you too much resources. Things like that is what I like to do. Another one is any of the undead. The dual undead minion that scales 4/4 when it dies. Very good here. You can proc it, especially when it has reborn. You get an extra copy. It's just really strong. And then Beatles, people just love playing Beatles, and this is a really good Beatles hero. So Terran is really strong in, I would say, particularly beast undead lobbies when they're both in, because you have a lot of options. But even if one of them are in, then you just have less options, but it's still realistically strong if you get that particular option. So just want to highlight that. Next up, we have Toki. So Toki lets you refresh and you get 2 higher tier minions. That's just a pretty good ability, it turns out. So it's not fancy, but a lot of good heroes or a lot of good minions are higher tier, and getting 2 means that it's not that risky. It also means that you could like hero double buy in the early game and not feel too bad. So like turn 7, you can hero power double buy 2 higher tier minions. Feels pretty good. And the curve with Toki is pretty established. You want to level on turn 4, because you have 6 gold, so you can level and then use the Toki hero power to get 2 shot 2/4 costs. That you can buy them and then turn 7 on the next turn, and then you can hero power double buy or level hero power or level buy, depending on what makes sense for your game state. So safe hero, has 10 armor, which isn't too bad, and has potential to get really strong cards. Once you're tier 5, you get 2/6 drops every turn. You don't have to level, and you can just like find really good cards and go from there. Brand. Yeah, I would say our brand stats isn't that good, but just brand has so much potential. Honestly, if you play a lot of brand games, like brand is just a really powerful effect to have. And since there's 2 people playing the game, it's a lot easier that one of you is running a comp that uses brand. So you do have to be a little bit selfless when you're playing brand, where it's like, it's my brand. No, it's not. It's not really your brand. It's our brand, comrade. And sometimes I want it. Just just spend the gold, send me your bread. I know you've been buying battle cries, but it's better for me. So you have to kind of have that mindset sometimes when you're playing this hero, and even when it looks like, oh, I want to play this because I'm the brand hero. Like, you just sometimes it's not that good for you. Maybe you're playing, I don't know, what's a non-brand, like undeads or something, and it's like brand isn't really needed there. Like, so it just passes your teammate, let them use it. So and it's always nice. Like, brand is a card that you can always use if there's like a free spot on your board where you're not like board locked. So not a bad hero to have, but you have to be careful. There are some lobbies where brand is just bad, and you have to identify that before you go in. So sometimes people are like, oh, I love brand, he's good, but you don't look at what minion types are in, and there's nothing you can really do realistically early with brand. You just have this dead brand in your hand. A little weird. Some people say there's never a lobby that brand's bad. I disagree. In duos, at least, like, there are lobbies where there are much stronger things to do. I would say out of the three, brand, Titus, Drakari is actually the best in duos this patch. So if we had to pick, if brand was replaced with Drakari, much better hero in my opinion. But right now, brand's still good. Just you have to be aware what minion types are in. Next up, we have Scabs. So we have Scabs, another stealer. He steals. He's a 2-cost stealer, which is just very strong. His biggest weakness is you can't do anything turn 1. And then turn 2, sometimes there's a 1-cost spell in your shop, so you can't really do anything turn 2. And then you have to level, and then you're playing like a regular hero at that point. That's like his biggest weakness. But sometimes you do high roll. He has decent armor, and you can just like have those good turns where, oh, your early game is you just have a lot of more economy, and then sometimes you hero power, you get something really good from your opponent, and you're also slightly scouting them, which is also like something that's more high level, but you do get to know, like, oh, they're running two cards that tell me, oh, they're running this comp. So there's that power in some information, but that's like more niche. I wouldn't recommend new players be looking at that angle, but generally pretty good hero, good armor, has some opportunities to give you some crazy cards, and then if you can use it in a realistic way, it's just good value. Next up, we have Reno, the Blizzard's favorite hero, in my opinion. Just doesn't really get nerfed in a way that's like reasonable. 16 armor, which is like not necessary, and just making a minion golden is just one of the stronger things to do in some lobbies. You do have to be aware of, like, oh, which lobbies they are, but literally golden, like, tier 6 drop can win you a lobby. Like golden, Tethys or really any tier 6 that is reasonable can just win you the lobby. That's when it's golden. So you could just do some really nice stuff, and in duos you have the time to get the tier 6 before you die if you're not getting blown out in the early game. So just a really strong hero, has really good hero combinations. Like Toki's loves him, Scabs loves him, Brand loves him, like Zephy loves him. Like a lot of heroes just like, hey, give me a Reno teammate, I'm happy. So, or at least if Reno's happy, because he's usually getting the value because he has to hero power himself. So yeah, definitely a strong hero if you have the synergies, and feels pretty good. Next up, we have Blackthorn. So this hero, honestly, is a Naga hero. Also a Quilboar hero, of course, but like one of the best Naga heroes in the game, because your hero power gives you 2 gold to get 4 triggers. So it just activates the Naga proc +1. And then there's some really good like Naga synergy cards with using your spells on minions, Critter Wranglers. So it just helps really well, and it gives you something to do. So something I like doing with this hero is Quilboar Nagas are in, of course. I play Nagas. My teammate plays Quilboars, because you don't really need to play Quilboars with this hero, but someone needs to play Quilboars. So let their teammate play Quilboars, and then you play the Naga, since it's a lot better for you to be Nagas. And that's been working out pretty well for us. So definitely a pretty powerful hero if you're open to it in Naga lobbies, just because it gives you 2 different directions. You don't have to always play Nagas, but it's there. And It's just very easy, very clean, and it makes a lot of the early Naga scaling cards just like feel pretty powerful to get, because when Thermo guys is like +5/+5, like in the early game, you're like, okay, I'm pretty safe. So pretty strong hero. Next up, we have Sire. Now Sire sometimes feels S tier, but then sometimes feels F tier, right? Because that's the issue with him in general. Like you are so reliant on your quests more than Marin is, because Marin you have 4 options compared to 2 options of your quest, so you can just whiff so hard here. So you have to be sometimes willing to play a 11 armor patchwork, which some people just die with that. But uh, obviously, the quest can be broken. So if you get a broken one, you can just win the game off of that for free. And heroes that can do that is really powerful, right? Some like you pick this, sometimes you just win the game for free if you get a really powerful quest. But you do have to be willing to have your teammates support you, right? So in if you're playing against random teammates with random teammates, sometimes they're not going to understand. Hey, I need 5 battle cries in 3 turns. Please feed me. Don't level. Please feed me the battle cry in your shop, please. Two in a row. Like do it. Like it's so game changingly broken. They're not going to do it, right? And that's like the frustration sometimes when you're playing this hero, where like your teammate just doesn't understand how critical it is for you to like trigger your ability instantly. But if they do, or they're understanding and they see like, oh, this is a really powerful quest to achieve early, and they help you, this is just a really strong hero. Now next up we have the B tiers. So these are still pretty good. I'm pretty happy with most of these. They're just not they're not guaranteed. I will say the first like 5 here I could be moved up a tier. I wasn't like super sure, but I wanted to like mention that. So first one we have Varden. So Varden is pretty good because in duos at least it's very easy to like force triples with Varden, even in solos. But in duos you have your teammate like playing tempo, so you can like be a little bit greedy in how you're freezing. And then once you get that, you could just get the triple and then pass it to your teammate. They can get a higher tier or lower tier, whatever they want, right? So it's pretty nice in that, hey, I can force triples quite easily with this hero. And then it has 15 armor, which is great. And sometimes you just get 2 copies of a really useful minion like Gym Rat, and you're just like, I'm super happy. Or you could just say, I'll just get a free Gym Rat every turn if I freeze, buy the shop out, freeze, and make sure like it's the highest tier. I mean, I can just get a free court card every turn. So just a pretty powerful hero. I could see this moving up, but sometimes it doesn't do anything, which is like the issue. If you're like in trouble and you're getting super pressured early, it doesn't do anything. So there are some risks, but I would say it's generally pretty good. Same thing with Zarek Master Cloner. So I think this hero is like Reno tier, but there's some disagreements, I would say, where some people don't really like this one compared to Reno, because Reno is like golden and you don't have to worry about space issues, and you have to do more work for this hero to make it work or to make it strong. But honestly, sometimes and also there's a risk, right? Some people don't use this hero power early at all, or they use it like when you're dead, essentially, and like your hero power is not going to save you. So you do have to like figure out like what the window is. So maybe it's a little bit harder to figure out that balance. But for me and in my games, I've really seen like pretty good success. 17 armor is fantastic, and you kind of have a Reno-esque hero power that can give you a lot of stats. Like I would say the best thing that, well, I guess there's two lines, two like really good lines, is either you get a really good like start with a really powerful minion that you can pump and then you can copy it, or you just get a really good scaling piece and you make a second copy of the scaling piece before you lose too much. So like Gym Rat, right? You hit a Gym Rat, you just make 2. Like don't care, just make 2 of them and you're good. Or you get like a really good um like the Pirate 2/5 that gets extra health, and you pump that up with like Quillboard gems or something. It's like a 10/10. Or the mech, you get a huge mech with that. The Mechanome is so it's so overtuned sometimes. You make a huge Mechanome, you just make a second copy, and you're just like, I'm not losing these fights. things like that is really really powerful. So there's definitely some good plays to do with this card, but um, sometimes it doesn't help you, or you feel like you can't really use this well, and it's just like not a good hero. But I really haven't felt that, but I did want to make it a little bit weaker just because of that. Next up, we have Guff. So Guff, another hero I think is pretty good personally, but some people don't really agree. Just um 20, I think 20 tiers is pretty useful or pretty reasonable cost. And then once this gets going, it's just tons and tons of high triple rewards. So I will say like the biggest issue some people might have is they're not like counting their window, like their timing. So they're triggering the first one maybe too early or too late, where you want to be triggering this to get like a 4 most of the time, where you get a 4 or a 5. And then you also want to be prioritizing level with this hero, because leveling means that you're going to be buying higher tier minions, which means that you're getting higher tier worth of cards, which makes the triple reward quicker. Where if you're staying on 2, you're staying on 3, then the max you can buy is a 3 tier minion, which means you have to buy 7 before it triggers. Where if you're on tier 5, you buy 4 and boom, it's triggered. So and then if you're tier 6, right, it's just proc and every turn. So this can be really good, kind of like a Silas, essentially, in terms of what it can do for you. So this has really good potential, but you do have to be aware of like, hey, I need to count my cards, count my tiers, make sure I'm getting the best opportunities. And if you can, I think this hero is fantastic. Next up is Masterwind. So this hero, why is it not working? Oh, it's because okay. This hero is, I think, fantastic. Issue is health. Biggest issue is health, and then the RNG nature of the new hero power. Sometimes you didn't really get an effect for the first 3-4 turns, and you feel like I've really taken free damage for no reason. But yeah, he has low armor base, but his potential is one of the highest in the game. Where you can get Reno hero power, you can get Zarek hero power, and that's just fantastic. And then you can just get really randomly good hero power. Shield is really good. Sometimes secrets can be really powerful. Terran can be really good, and so there's definitely some really powerful ones in there. So if you do have a teammate that's willing to maybe play defensively for a little bit just to make sure we're okay, then Masterwind's potential can shoot. Next up, we have Voon. So Voon is decent, not bad. The biggest issue with Voon is, number one, he's predictable. And that turn 3, he's weak, right? So oh, I can level into Voon. I'm gonna beat Voon. I'm gonna just have a regular board. I'm playing scouts. That's it, because it's a Voon. Like they're gonna be weak turn 3. They're gonna be usually weak turn 6. Every 3 turns they're gonna be playing a little bit greedy. In the late game, it doesn't matter. People stop really caring too much, but in the early game, for sure, like there is a window, and if you're in that window, you get them every time they're weak. So it's just fantastic if you are the Voon turn 3 person, like, oh, they're weak here, they're weak here, they're weak here, and you're not really struggling into them. But the payoff is that you can make golden minions pretty easily. You can make pairs pretty easily. You can copy, kind of like a slower Zarek, essentially, or any of the slower, doubling heroes. It has potential, but 10 armor isn't that high, because you have to make yourself weak on a consistent basis. Every 3 turns, you're making yourself slightly weaker. So you are taking chunks, a little bit chip damage pretty readily, even though you don't want to be doing that. So it's a little bit riskier, but the payoff can be pretty high. So if you know what you're doing and your teammates playing pretty aggressively or safe, then pretty strong hero. Silas, biggest issue is a lot of these heroes have low armor, and that's probably the biggest issue. Silas, same thing here. 8 armor, not enough, and you're really sometimes in trouble. Sometimes you don't have good tickets. Sometimes there's no tickets in the shop. sometimes there's a full board of tickets you can only buy one, and it's just like why. So you do have to be a little bit careful. The payoff though is really good once you get high tier. Tier 4, tier 5, that you're getting free tier 4 through tier 5 minions. It can be really powerful, but the early games sometimes struggle, and sometimes RNG is just not on your side, so it's a little bit risky there. Hogger. This used to be a horrible hero in my opinion, but pirates are pretty good this patch. So because of that, Hogger and Patches do get a facelift, and they are reasonably good heroes to play, since at least in duos, pirates are really strong. So you do have to be aware of what other minion types are, because the pirates have high health or sometimes decent attack, but if your spacefarer is just like 100, 1,000, like it still dies to a 300 minion pretty easily. So you do have to be a little bit aware of like, oh, is this good? So like in token lobbies, this is really good, because 1,000 health into token lobby is great. 1,000 health into Murloc poison scan, not that's great. But Hogger, pretty good, pretty safe. Lower base armor than you'd want, but it's still reasonable enough that it's not too bad. Now we have Secret Guy, or Great Akazamzarak, if you want to pronounce it that way. So pretty good in mech lobbies, pretty good in Death Rattle Reborn lobbies, pretty good in just having generic tempo, and also pretty good in scam lobbies, like into maybe Quillbores or so. It's kind of weak into to cleaves. So if your opponent is running Pirate Cleave, you're sometimes that Pirate Cleave will just cleave your poison, and that is something I've noticed. At least we've done to other people, where it's like their poison just gets cleaved by the pirate, and you're just like, oh, like that was my whole hero power. That's why I picked him, and it's just that. So there are some weaknesses in pirate lobbies in particular, but generically pretty good hero in the right lobbies. Now, not good in every lobby, but in the right lobby. Next up, we have Reform. So I like this hero quite a bit, just because stealing is fun. No. That's gonna be taken out of context. But just generically getting a free minion of is pretty nice, because usually people, they, at least in duos, they don't really play around with farm. In solos, people do play around with farm, but in duos, people just like, they don't care. Like they give you whatever. And a lot of times you're getting like macaws, you're getting like pretty good like starter minions that can really help you figure out what to do. And also there's still like undead, you can still just get triples pretty easily. So there's some pretty good advantages to reform. 1 gold for a random minion is not a bad cost, and the buff does matter now. Even if you don't get a minion, you still get a coin, so that is super relevant in duos, where sometimes your teammate just solo kills the board and you still get a coin. So not too bad of a downside. So I like reform quite a bit. Next up, we have Lich Vazal. Now she's she's a weird one, because I wouldn't say she's bad, but she always kind of like feels much riskier than you would expect, because sometimes like you don't start with 18 armor. That's lying. You start with like maybe 14 if you're lucky, 9, or way worse if you're unlucky, right? So it really depends on hitting those damage mitigation demons. If you do, this is a really nice hero. If you don't, you're kind of in trouble. And then you have to kind of leave that damage mitigation hero on your board. And I wouldn't say demons are in the strongest place in the meta right now, so she's a little bit weaker than normal. If demons are pretty good, but right now Nether Construct is the main demon engine, and you don't need other demons realistically at all. So in that context, she's a little bit weaker than she would normally be, but she's still okay. If you don't have any other pick, you can just pick her and see how it goes. Next up, we have Lich King. So Lich King is pretty good in terms of what he could do. He's a little bit better sometimes than Terran, since Terran just destroys the minion. Lich King gives you Reborn. And so same thing, Beast Undead lobbies. Terran's really good at, just kind of has the same advantages as, Lich King's really good, same as advantages as Terran. and sometimes better advantages, but you have to be careful. And Reborn is really nice in Undead, particularly just because you can, with Grave Robber, you can clone particular minions you want, and that can be really powerful. So this game pretty strong. Next up, we have a sleeper hero, Alex Straza. So this hero's been pretty bad for a while, but I would say in duos, it's actually pretty good in Murloc lobbies because you have the Hunter of Gatherers and Lock Prince combo where Hunter of Gatherers will buff the health, which will buff the Lock Prince. And other thing in duos is you have the Selfless Sightseer. So once you hit tier 4, you have a lot of really good dragons to hit. So actually with Alex Strauzer, once you hit tier 4, the hero power becomes actually quite meaningfully and quite strong. So this is something you have to be aware of. And I wouldn't do this in every dragon lobby, but the ones with Murlocs in as well, where this can actually be a pretty powerful hero. The riskiest thing is the 7 base health, right? So you have to, your teammate should be playing a hero with a high or decently reasonable amount of health. You don't want to be playing like Snake Eyes on top of this, right? Then you're in trouble. But if you do have a safe hero or a strong early game hero, this can be a pretty powerful supporting piece to the puzzle. So we've been experimenting with this and it's been working out pretty well for us. So definitely want to throw this in there. Next up, we have Terran. So Terran is... This video is getting long. I knew it would. Let's speed it up a little bit. Thorum, actually. So Thorum is pretty good in the case of you get a tier 7 minion. You do have to know which types are in. There's a lot of bad tier 7s, but I would say like Quillboars are pretty good, Nagas are pretty good, Pirates are pretty good. The other ones and then the neutrals are also pretty good. So I would say those are the ones that jump out to me. And if you have those types in, then it's a pretty good pick. If you don't, then it's a little bit risky. Like Murloc's pretty bad and whatnot. So Beaster's not a hero or not a card at all. So in those lobbies, they're pretty good, but it is a little bit risky and sometimes it takes too long. But you do have okay amount of armor, so it's not too hard to get there, but you do have to be aware of it. Next up, we have Galakron. So Gallywix. So Gallywix used to be really, really good. And then they nerfed him. And then he was really, really bad. And then they added elementals and pirates. And now he's pretty solid. Now his biggest issue is he has no armor at all whatsoever. And you don't get any early game tempo with him. So you're just taking a ton of early damage. And that sucks. So you have to be aware of, hey, you're playing Gallywix, we just need to survive. There's elementals or pirates in, we just need to survive. And then once you get there, then Gallywix is BS, right? So if you can do that, it's really strong. If you can't, you're dead. So you just have to be aware. So it's risky. That's why it's not like A or S. Next up, we have George. Benefit of George is he has 17 sometimes with a reroll, 20 armor. That's crazy. And in non-mech lobbies, you can use this shield relevantly. In mech lobbies, you have a support system, which kind of does George's job, and everyone has shields, so it's not that powerful. But in non-mech lobbies where shield is hard to come by, you don't really use his shield early, but in the late game, shield is actually very relevant on some particular minions. So George, and he has so much armor, it's just like very good. So same thing with Enhanso, kind of like George, but also as early game. Yeah. Because sometimes you get reborn, sometimes you get the free shield, and it's just like it gives you like 4 to 10 health on top. So just the same kind of thing. Strong early game sometimes, and relevant sometimes mid game hero power as well. So if you've seen the reborn Leroy's, you know how damaging that can be. Next up, we have Cookie. So Cookie's biggest issue is the low health, but if you can have a hero that has, or a supporting like a teammate hero that has pretty high base health or base armor, then you can just play Cookie, get some high tempo, and do well with him. Same thing with Snake Eyes, low armor, but if you have a supporting or an aggressive early game duo partner hero, then it's generally fine. Some people also play Snake Eyes safe, so they'll hit like 5 gold and then stay on 1. I don't love it, but I understand it. But I don't love it. But, stop doing this to us. But I understand it. It's fair. It means that you don't take damage in the early game. You can play a normal game and make it work. But do you have to hurt us like that? I don't know. And next up we have what are the ogres called? I actually don't remember their names. We have Twiddle D and Twiddle. I don't remember their names honestly. Oh, Cho'Gall. Yeah, we have Cho'Gall. So this hero is usually the best of the worst. You usually only pick him up when you have nothing else going for yourself, which happens a reasonable amount of time. So it's not like that weird, but not the not the best, but it's reasonable. Like it's not a bad hero to pick up. It's just like you get 28 armor is probably the biggest advantage. It's 14 armor across two is pretty good. And then as long as you guys are actually getting golden minions, it's reasonable. So just keep that in mind. And it's a solid hero. Nothing too crazy special. I like here, pretty good in beast lobbies, just getting double trigger with Macaw is probably the biggest advantage. The second biggest thing is double cleave. So I would say if you're playing Alec here, you want to be ending the mid to late game with one of those two game plans, either double Macaw or double cleave. And if you are, then you're probably doing good. If you're not, then it's just a little bit of extra early game tempo, which isn't like that fancy, but it's okay. Sometimes dragons can also take advantage of it, but giving your dragons taunt sometimes is weird, but sometimes you have no option, you have no choice, and you just do it anyway. So it's not like the end of the world. And then next up we have patches. Same thing as hoggers, in that pirate lobbies are a little bit better for patches. So getting patches, you have more armor than hogger, and I would say your hero power is better early. Hoggers is better later, but early game is really where it matters. Like the worst part of duos is getting fourth once you're climbing. So mitigating fourths is more important than getting the first. So I would say like patch is a little bit better because your early game is a little bit cleaner than hoggers can be. Hoggers you can like whiff super hard and you're not happy. And then we have Elise. So Elise discovers a tier. This is this is a hero I see people doing like weird stuff on, like turn one hero power, which I don't normally recommend, just because you really can only use this like 5 times, 4 times really, but 5 times if you're really pushing it. So you have to be really selective in when you're using your power spikes, and there are some cleaner turns. It's very clean to do it for a tier 3 minion, and if you want, you can wait and do it for tier 4s as well later on. So those are really my recommendations if you really need to. Tier 1 and 2 are rough. So if you do that, then I think it's pretty powerful. If you know what you're looking for as well, it's pretty powerful. So pretty good hero in those cases. And ooh, I have some examples if you want to take a look in HS replay. And then next up we have the C's. These are okay, but they have like some weird cases. So Nazoth, some people would say Nazoth's very good, but our stats don't dictate that, and I'm just like gonna trust my stats more than the case. Like we're not really beast lovers here, so it's understandable why we don't really have like the best Nazoth stats. But uh, obviously we've seen Nazoths do well, really good in beasts, decent in undead. Same thing with Greybow, right? Really good in beast undead. But unlike Lich King and Terran, I think the scaling is a little bit lower on Greybow compared to the other two. And then Nazoth is just risky. Sometimes your your fish just gets sniped. Sometimes it doesn't, but like cleaves ruin you. So you have to be aware, like maybe that's something we're not doing. We're playing Beast Undead in pirate lobbies, and pirate lobbies are cleaning us out. So maybe Beast Undead, no pirates, Nazot good, right? So some because they've removed the beast cleaver, so you don't have that anymore. So there's just some things to think about there, but our stats aren't as good. But I do want to recommend, like I've seen really strong Nazot players for sure, and Greybow players as well. Uh, what's this hero? His name. Ugh. Floop, right? Yeah, Mr. Floop. So Mr. Floop, he chooses a friendly minion, transforms into our highest tier. Now it's not Sandy, it's not highest health, it's highest tier. So sometimes it's just gonna transform into a minion you don't want. So, but usually in particularly dragon lobbies, the highest tier sometimes is that immune dragon, and that can be fantastic. Same thing with Kobors, all your minions are huge, so it's just like it doesn't matter what you transform into. So if you know your teammate's gonna be likely to play a build where you can get some really powerful scaling on it, so usually pirates are in, usually nagas are in, usually Kobors are in, dragons are in, one of those elementals can also do it really well, then you can just have Floop have a gigantic big boy. So it's not the fanciest hero, and that's probably why it doesn't see a lot of play. But in the right lobbies, if you have a good setup, it's pretty powerful. Next up, we have Phelan. So Phelan's biggest issue is that it's hard to get to 6. Honestly, it's actually quite hard to get to 6. Am I spelling it wrong? No, I am actually spelling it wrong. But here, so you discover 2, 4, and 6, but you have to go to tier 2, tier 4, tier 6. Tier 2, tier 4 is going to happen. Tier 6, rough sometimes. And the base armor isn't super duper high, so and you're guaranteed, well, not guaranteed, but you're very likely losing the turn 1 fight as well, right? So like the 11 armor there is kind of lying to you. You have like 9 or even less. So it is a little bit riskier, but the payoffs can be good. You have to make sure that the tier 6 is worth leveling up to. If you like tier for something that doesn't give you any skilling when you're using it, like an Eliza or something, then you're killing yourself. Unless you're like so high rolling or there's a ghost in a lobby or something like that. So you have to be very careful with this hero. And that's usually the problem with most of these heroes here. You have to be very careful with them. And if you're not, you're dead. And these are the heroes you get 4th with. And if you get 4th, it's never worth playing a hero that you can easily get 4th with. Most of the time, unless you're very confident or sure. And comfortability is key. If you're comfortable with this hero, raise it up 1, 2 tiers. Like if you know you can play well with the hero, it doesn't matter. Like ETC, some people love ETC, and I'm not one of those people, but I can see why. Right? If you hit those combos, it's really good. So ETC, risky hero. Sometimes the buddies are useless. Sometimes they're fantastic and win you the game, which is like an appeal and one of the things I really highly value. Like, oh, this hero can win you the game, but more than not, I've seen it just kill people. So that's why I don't have him super high rated. But obviously, if you have better luck or you use more of the buddies to your advantage than maybe I do, then pretty good. Omu just has no armor. Good hero, no armor. And sometimes you die, and that's just the issue with the hero. But it's a good hero. No armor is really, really painful. Heist Baron Togwaggle is reasonable. The biggest issue, I would say, is that 11 gold to steal is just high a base to be asking, right? They nerfed him a little bit, and now he's just very expensive. And in duels, a lot of times you really want to pass, you want to do other things, and you don't really press the button to steal all that much. So it just ends up being like, yeah, I use it twice, maybe 3 times, and then it's like, is that worth the hero with 11 armor? Maybe not. So that's kind of the issue. So that's my take on that. And then we're nearing a day, or we're nearing an hour. I didn't want to go this long, so we'll just kind of go through some of the other ones. Yogg, I like Yogg, but the stats for Yogg isn't as good as I would like. It's just sometimes you hero power and it doesn't help you. Same thing with Yasiraj as well. Anything in here? A lot of these don't have win cons on like attached to their abilities. Is what you'd notice here. Janice is pretty okay, but it's like a slower Goya, which is kind of the issue, where you can pay 3 gold to put it in the shop and then buy it again, which is just sometimes good, but there's less synergies. But with choose ones and stuff, it's pretty solid. So I think I might be underrating this hero in particular. Vol'jin, sometimes you can make like big cleaves or make shields. We just don't do that, so this is a hero we don't have like too much experience with. So that's why it's down there. None of these really jump out to me. Some people like Shivala, but a lot like some of the best comps don't really do anything with Shivala. It's just like you're staying on 2 and you're playing Shivala. Like, why? I've seen that happen. They're playing Shivala, they're staying on 2. And I'm just like, why? Why are you doing that? And then AFK, sometimes it's good, sometimes it's not. Ticketus, sometimes it's good, sometimes it's not. And these D heroes are just they usually only give you small tempo in the early game, and it's not worth the armor loss or picking up that particular hero. Like, they just don't give you any win cons. Shutterwalk got nerfed to oblivion. Gilwing has no armor for some reason. I don't understand why he has no armor. And none of these really jump out to me. A lot of these have like 18 armor in duos, but they're just not. They're not worth playing the hero itself. You're gonna lose to something that's like 14 armor, but an actual hero. Like, like you're gonna lose to all of these just because even though you have like 5 or 6 more armor, it's not enough. So let's zoom it out a little bit and just kind of take a look. And these are in duos. These 6 heroes are in duos, so I didn't put them in. So you can kind of see the S2, the S, the A, the B, the C, the D. I will say, like, I just made this, shot it, release it. It's not like I checked with my teammate on the tier list. I'm sure he'll like mostly agree with like 80 to 90%, which is like not as high as you'd want. But we have different game styles for sure. But just wanted to kind of give people a little bit of a hero guide for this like particular meta right now, and then you will go from there. And we'll see how this video does, and we'll see if we'll do other like guides of similar natures. But yeah, take care of yourselves, have a wonderful day, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye bye.